Hello, namaste everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, depends on where you are. Welcome to my talk on the second series of WebEdu. Today I'm going to talk about my a theme that's close to my heart because this is where my profession and my hobby meets. So it's very close to me personally, but I'm sure that you all guys will also enjoy it. There's hardly uh, we hardly speak about architects and who they are and what they do and what is their representation on banknotes. So I will try to show you through my presentation today. Uh, I will straight jump onto the presentation, not waste too much time. So right. So architects on banknotes is my topic that I'm going to speak about today. Minute, please. Right. So, a little bit about myself. My name is Dharmesh Thakker. I'm an architect myself. I have studied architecture in Mumbai and London. I've been practicing since architect since 2006. Uh, I have been involved in designing of various kinds of building projects in India. On a personal level, my interest is in history, geography, design, culture, politics, and economics. I also do a lot of photography and I enjoy traveling. I like to network with global banknote collectors on social media and in real life as well. I'm a member of many local collector groups. Also, I'm a member of many international numismatic organizations like the International Banknote Society, American Numismatic Association, and several other Indian organizations as well. This is my third video on this web video series. The first one was on banknotes of Nepal. The second one was on banknotes of least populated countries. I'm so glad that each of these presentations got more than 500 views. And I really hope that, whatever I'm trying to share is being appreciated by people. I've also written some articles in newspapers. I've also done some exhibitions of my collection during the collector meets during non-COVID time earlier. I have also given some presentations earlier. So jumping on to today's topic, who is an architect? Uh, uh, so if we go by the definition, architect is a person who plans, designs, and oversees construction of buildings. In the origin of the word is from Latin word architectus, which means archi is chief and tecton is builder. So historically, the notion is that an architect is a person who's a chief builder. He visualizes the building, he designs it, and he builds. Uh, and architects also have responsibility to make the building functional and also make it look aesthetically beautiful, because that's what the end users who are living in that building, they aspire. Architects communicate via drawings, making models, sketches, and some other modes, but primarily drawings and making models. Over the years of development of the profession, since I would say about in 14th, 15th century Renaissance period, drawing and making models is one of the key aspect of how architects communicate with other people who build actually their ideas. So why are architects important? Uh, it has been said that architecture is like a frozen music, uh, and it's very poetic. And uh, architecture, like any good music, there are various tones and notes. There are highs and lows. So it is a three-dimensional frozen music. Also, we spend a majority of our lives within buildings which are designed by architects. We don't live outdoors. We need shelter. It's one of the basic human requirements to have a shelter, and we spend most of our lives in within buildings. So, buildings which are designed by architects are important. It is also said that the buildings that we live in, they define us and they define our lives, uh, which is very true. If you imagine, architects can imagine future and they can guide the society towards it through their vision and ideas. They can envisage that what kind of houses should the people live in, what kind of cities should people live in, and that defines life of those people who inhabit those cities and places. So there, it's very important. Many countries and societies take pride in their architectural heritage, and which brings me to this theme of my collection of architects on banknotes. So, being selected to represent your country as a face of or as a face of a banknote is one of the highest honors one can achieve, actually. Uh, and You have to attain a certain level, or you should have had done some good amount of deeds in your life, so that you get an honor like that. So architects have played significant role in building national legacies also. Apart from buildings, they also contribute in nation building. Some architects have inspired societies across the world and have become national heroes. They have earned their place on the banknotes. Many countries take a lot of pride in certain architects, whose buildings are there, their cities, capital cities, their national assembly buildings. Very important buildings are designed by those architects. So there's a lot of pride associated with that. There was a recent study. I have provided the link down there. This study was actually about the color of the currency. That what is the color, dominant color of the currency across the world. One part of that study was that what is the profession or occupation of people who are featured on the banknote. So, for example, Queen Elizabeth's note has a portrait of Queen Elizabeth. So, what's her occupation? Her occupation is that she's a royalty, she's a monarch. On for example, on Indian banknote, you see Mahatma Gandhi. His occupation was a lawyer, but also politician. So, out of all the notes that the researchers scanned, it was majority. The top position was the politics. Second occupation was royalty, and hence you can see that. According to that study, architecture, there were 12 instances where architects were mentioned on the banknotes, but I did some more digging in. I did some more research, and according to me, there are 25 architects who have been featured on the banknotes till now. There could be many more, but those haven't come across me. So, in case if any one of you also come across that you don't see today, please let me know about that. I'll be more than happy to expand this list. So, what I would like to mention here is that architects are among the top 10 occupations of the people featured on banknotes. So they're at par with the religious occupation and the musicians occupation. So you can see that they are significant and they are more important than others in the way that countries have represented them on banknotes, not any other way. So I will speak about these 25 notes. Some notes I'll speak in detail, others I may not, because we have a limited time today. So I'll begin my topic of these banknotes with the first one called, his name is Le Corbusier. It's a pseudo name adopted by Swiss architect. If all the architects, I'm sure, know about him. He's considered to be like the father of modern architecture. He invented a lot of things that we as architects even follow till today. and a lot of principles that he experimented in early 20th century, they are still valid, and those are by default. Those are not experiments anymore, those are by default. So he is very important architect, one of the most uh, I would say adored architect. He was also criticized for a lot of his policies, but very popular. So he was born in Switzerland. He's been honored on this Swiss 10 franc note that came in circulation in around 1995. Until very recently, a new series came in, but these notes are still found. They are in circulation. Some of his notable works are Villa Savoy in France, in city of Poissy in France. Some more can you see? One of his most important architectural work was the city of Chandigarh in India. Very few people in India would know that this Swiss architect had designed the whole city of Chandigarh. And that city of Chandigarh, two of the main buildings have been featured on these 10 franc note. So I've taken these small vignettes of the rear side of the banknote, and the two buildings that are featured here is on the top left is the High Court building of Punjab and state of Haryana. They were together when uh, India was a free country in 1947. So this was the High Court building. The second one building on the right side you see is the Secretariat building. It's the government building. It's the seat of the government. The chief ministers of both the states sit within this building, and these two buildings have been featured on the 10 Swiss franc note. It's a matter of pride for India as well to have two of their buildings featured on a Swiss note. This one, he's a very famous architect, Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. He's from Germany. This one is not a circulated note. It was not issued by any country or any bank. This is a test note. Test notes are something. These are like trial notes, and a lot of banks and printing companies, they come up with their designs and they present them to the bank, so that a lot of their technology is designed and integrated into these kind of test notes. So this is one test note from Germany. It does not have any actual currency because it's not a real currency note, but it has a denomination of 100 on the note. The design of one of the project designed by Mies van der Rohe has been featured. That's the Farnsworth House. Again, architects would know about these, but the I would tell a bit more in detail for people who are not, that Mies van der Rohe was he was a contemporary of Le Corbusier, and also he was a very, very prominent figure in modern architecture. A lot of his ideas influenced many generations of architects. So these are some of his projects. The one on the banknote that you see is one in the top center. It's a whole house which is floated on this grass lawn. It's been lifted up. So as against the conventional idea of this big house sitting on the ground, this whole house has been lifted up. You can see through below the house. The lawn goes through it. It appears that it's floating. A lot of glass has been used. A lot of metal has been used. These were all the industrial materials which were available in the early 20th century, and Mies van der Rohe used them to the fullest in lots of his projects. One of his most famous project is in Barcelona, which is there on the bottom left. It's called the German Pavilion in Barcelona, also known as Barcelona Pavilion, and it's one of the landmark projects. So in case if you happen to be in Barcelona, please don't forget to visit that building. It's one of the most important and most notable buildings built in 20th century. It was actually built and demolished because it was a temporary structure, but people realized it's important, and it was rebuilt as it was designed by Mies van der Rohe in 1930s. We all know about this building. Gustav Eiffel was actually an architect, also an engineer, but the way he's designed his buildings, I would say you can call him an architect. Gustav Eiffel designed the Eiffel Tower, which is in Paris. He was one of the engineers who was much ahead of his time to envisage a building like that. Eiffel Tower, when it was built, it was the tallest building in the world. It was again also was built for a short period of time. Eiffel Tower was not supposed to be built forever. It had a certain amount of years, and it was supposed to be broken down after that. But it became so popular and so many people visited it that it eventually became the icon of city of Paris that we now connect. When we think of Paris, we think of Eiffel Tower. One of the most second important project of Eiffel was the structural design of the Statue of Liberty. Yes, he did. He designed the internal structure of Statue of Liberty. Statue of Liberty was designed in France. It was built in France and it was gifted to United States of America by French government. So Gustave Eiffel was involved in the structure design of the Statue of Liberty. These two are the most iconic structures for France as well as USA that we all connect with. So he's a very important person who has contributed to these two landmarks. This one is a 50 mark banknote from Finland, and the architect featured on this note is Alvar Aalto. He was also very important Finnish architect. He was a modern architect. He practiced in the early 20th century and mid 20th century, and some of his notable projects are, most of them are in Finland, but his influence can be seen in other countries as well. So the one that is featured on the banknote is Finlandia Hall. It's an auditorium. The one below you see are different projects which are also in in Finland, and these are different kind of institutional projects, which means some of them are auditoriums, some of them are university buildings, and his unique style was to bring in a lot of natural light into the buildings from the roof or the sides, and he's quite known for that. This one is from USA. Is Thomas Jefferson. Not He's not known much as being an architect. He was the third president of the USA and second vice president of the USA, and his contributions are recognized for him being a politician. But he was also an architect. He has built many he has built many projects, which where some of them are his own houses. He also has built the University of Virginia campus. One of the main important buildings in the University of Virginia were built by designed and built by Thomas Jefferson. One of the older version of $2 note from 1953 depicts this building called Monticello. Monticello was his own house where he lived, but now is a very important landmark or a national heritage for USA. So this building has also been featured on the coin, 5 cents coin of USA. On the top right, you see the actual image of it. The most important thing about Thomas Jefferson's architecture work was that he brought in this ancient Greek style, classical Greek style, and tried to revive it in USA, which was a new country when he was the president. So a lot of architectural imagery or a heritage was to be created for the new country, and he thought that this going back to the classical architecture of Greece was the right thing to do. And in many of his buildings, they all look very similar, but they're all different projects. The bottom three, and they a lot of them still stand, and they are very important buildings. This banknote is from Italy. He's Gian Lorenzo Bernini. Bernini is also one of very famous Renaissance architect. Renaissance was this art revival period in 14th and 15th century Italy, where a lot of architects, sculptors, musicians, and intellectuals, they experimented with a lot of new things, and it was a large cultural movement, which defines a lot of what today's Europe and today's Italy is actually. So these work of these architects were very important. They were not only architects at that time, because these guys were artists, so they were actually like polymaths. Polymath is a person who would do different things. They will make sculptures, they will paint, they will also build buildings, and they will play music. They could do many things. They could do 10 different professions, and Bernini was one of them. One of his most important work is this piazza, or this entire courtyard in front of the St. Peter's Basilica, which is now in Vatican. At that time, it was in Rome. Then within the St. Peter's Basilica, also he's designed many things inside. Some are sculpture, some are some piece of furniture. He's also designed a lot of fountains around city of Rome that you can still see till today. So all of us know the Vatican and the St. Peter's Basilica, which is one of the most famous buildings around the world, most visited. This kind of semicircular shape that you see in the front around the courtyard with those columns, that whole was designed by Bernini. On the middle, you see a sculpture of a man sitting on a horse. Uh, this was called the Vision of Constantine. So this is a very important sculpture which is there inside the St. Peter's Basilica. There is also a staircase that leads you to this particular sculpture within the building. That is also there on the top, on the bottom left. And in that circular vignette, you can see that the same angle or the same view. There's a fountain, the Fontana del Tritone. I'm sorry, my pronunciation may be wrong, but the detail on that note, on the front side of the note, where a man is sitting with this kind of basket of water, that's from that particular fountain. Michelangelo, also from Italy, he's also very famous, more famous for his sculptural works, but also quite famous for his building projects. And some of his buildings are represented on this particular note. This one is a Capitoline Hill from Rome. He was also involved in the construction of St. Peter's Basilica at some point before Bernini. Again, same. There's another architect from Switzerland called Francisco Borromini. He's represented on this 100 francs note from 1975. He also was involved in many important buildings of Rome. One of his most famous building was Sant'Ivo Sapienza. It's a religious building which is featured on this particular note. Architecturally, it's very important for the arrangement of its plan and the patterns that you see in the flooring, which is also the flooring pattern of this particular church has been incorporated onto the note as a background design. You also see the plan of that particular church on this note. A tower is also featured. Very famous. This one is from England. Very famous architect, Sir Christopher Wren. He was he's built the St. Paul's Cathedral in London. Anybody who goes to London cannot miss this particular building. He was also involved in making 54 churches in London, and some other secular buildings as well, in the Cambridge University and Oxford University. The Royal Observatory at Greenwich, from where the GMT zero line passes, that particular observatory has also been designed by Christopher Wren. On the backside of this note, you can see his portrait and the view of the city of London. You can see in the photograph as it is today, and this was, I think, in 17th century. The view which is depicted on the currency note. The one on the right is the Greenwich Observatory and his building designed for the University of Oxford. This one is from Austria. Architect's name is Otto Wagner. He was involved in this art movement called Art Nouveau. Some of his notable buildings are this Postal Savings Bank building in Vienna and many other. The building that's represented on this note is this particular building I just mentioned. The most important thing about this building was the use of newly available materials like glass, steel, aluminium, concrete, and he infused them with this traditional style of stone building, and he experimented with those. This is another banknote from Belgium. Victor Horta is the architect. He was very famous for his this particular style of very ornate features within his building. So on his banknote, you can see that as a predominant theme, where a lot of these wrought iron, bent, and ornate pieces, which look like a railing and handles and pieces, you see them on the note. They are taken from some of his particular projects, which you see. The handrail of the staircase has been featured, and some of the other, there's also a small see-through mark on the right, on the top right side in the corner of the banknote that you see. That's one of the chair designed by him, which is also one landmark chair, which is in the shape of butterfly. This one is from Germany. Germany has actually, released the most number of banknotes which feature architects. So one of them is this architect Johann Balthasar Neumann. He was from an architectural phase called from the 17th century, and that particular time was called the Baroque architecture, which was a lot about to do with ornamentation and the painting within the building. So some of his projects, very famous projects, have been featured on this note. They are from this place called Würzburg. Another German architect called Karl Friedrich Schinkel. He was from the 19th century. Some of his works were about bringing this classical style also into the and he designed them in 19th century. Look, they will remind you of this classical Roman buildings, but they were built in 19th century. Australia has featured two architects on their notes. One is Francis Greenway. He was responsible for a lot of architecture that shaped the, like the early colonial